Well, hello, everyone, and it's so good to be back with you for another edition of the Christian Recorders Dialogues. My name is Antoine C. Wright, and I'm so excited to have a very, very special guest, one of the most consequential governors to ever serve the Commonwealth of Kentucky, the Commonwealth's 63rd governor, the Commonwealth's 50th Attorney General, a 48-year-old young man whose father served as the governor of the Commonwealth. And most people that I talk to refer to him as the next version of President Bill Clinton. As we all know, President Clinton was the former governor of Arkansas. He was a charismatic, fresh voice on the scene at a very consequential time in America. And so many people are making the comparison to this young man that we have the blessing and the opportunity to have with us today, none other than the great Andy Beshear. Governor, welcome to the Christian Recorders Dialogue.
Thank you very much for having me. That is a heck of an introduction.
Well, it's good to be with you. And Governor, I'll get right to the chase because we are living at a very consequential time in America. I said on a CNN program earlier in the week that we're seeing the fastest regression of Black political representation in the South since Hayes ended Reconstruction in 1877. It's no accident that this right-wing extreme effort not to gerrymander seats, because if they were trying to just gerrymander seats, they would have taken on 74% white districts. But this intentional effort to eliminate and exterminate Black political representation in the South is no accident. You've been on the front line, speaking out, fighting against these initiatives. What do you say for what you're feeling as a Southern governor yourself?
A year and a half ago, one of the honors of my life was to get invited to Selma for the 60th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. And on that day, a Southern governor got to march with those foot soldiers and think about the progress that had been made since that shameful decision by the Supreme Court, tearing apart the Voting Rights Act. I've been thinking about those foot soldiers who are still with us, who put their lives and their bodies on the line to wake up America and to help us to make progress. Yet that's being yanked back at such a rate. I mean, we have a president that claims that racism doesn't exist while showing us what it looks like every single day. You're right. What we see in the actions in many of Southern states are trying to eliminate the diverse voices in DC that help make the American people feel like they're represented, that they're heard. But the biggest concern to me is if we don't have that diversity of voice, we're not going to make the best decisions. We're not going to serve all the people of the United States of America. So I think that decision is pushing us back. I think this administration believes that diversity is a dirty word. I believe that it's something we ought to embrace, any and every day. And because of that, I think we drastically need a change in our U.S. House of Representatives that will hold this president in check, hopefully a change in the Senate. But I'd also say when we elect Democratic governors across the country, me being the head of the Democratic Governors Association, what you see is state leadership, which sometimes is the last line of defense against what we see coming out of Washington, that'll veto those maps, that eliminate people's voices, that will push back against the harmful policies that we see, and that will actually stand up for the inclusion of all of our people.
Governor, one of the things I have appreciated about you is that your unapologeticness to talk about your faith and your relationship with the Christian experience. As a fifth generation AME, I understand probably more so than many that when the Black church leads, our country succeeds. And every major successful movement in the history of this country has always included the Black press, the Black church, young people under the age of 50 pushing the envelope for change, social organizations, fraternities, sororities, etc. But also people who may not look like us, who understand that issues divide us, but our values unite us. Talk about your relationship from a value standpoint with the Christian experience and why you've been unapologetic in speaking to that.
Well, first, when you mention the Black church and the Black press, I want to first admit that I will never be able to personally feel the sting of discrimination of the vestiges of slavery and segregation and Jim Crow. But I know racism exists. And I surround myself with folks that I can listen to, that I can learn from, and that we can make positive steps forward. And because of that, in Kentucky, we've done things like restoring voting rights to over 200,000 Kentuckians that can now participate in our great democracy. We removed a statue of Jefferson Davis from our Capitol Rotunda because a symbol of bigotry simply doesn't belong there. We were able to sign a version of the Crown Act for state employees, making sure that no one is discriminated against because of their hairstyle. I was able to make Juneteenth at least an executive branch holiday because my legislature wouldn't. And then, again, hearing from leaders, especially in our largest African-American community, that said there simply wasn't access to health care. We were able to build the first new hospital in West Louisville in 150 years. So I am grateful for the leaders around me in Kentucky that are a part of this administration and that can speak to those things that I can't necessarily feel, but can listen to and make those right decisions. And my faith guides me on all of that. You know, I was taught the golden rule that we love our neighbor as ourselves, and the parable of the Good Samaritan that says everyone is our neighbor. Those that don't value diversity aren't thinking about that story. I mean, those are two people on different sides of the road that look different, that think different, that pray different, and that vote different, I'm sure. And the lesson is we're all God's children. We're supposed to go over and pick that other person up when the current federal administration would kick them while they're down. I think about how when people manipulate religion, they try to write things into the Bible, like a comma unless or an asterisk or an exception. Right? It's love your neighbor as yourself, not love, not comma, accept. You know, accept one another as Christ accepted you. There's no comma unless. You know, all of these teachings, judge not lest ye be judged, are supposed to be universal towards each other. I share my faith not because I'm trying to push it on anyone else. I believe that people have to accept Jesus into their lives, and that should be on their own volition. But because it's the driving force behind what I do. It's how I make my decisions. You know, I think about the importance of early childhood. I'm in an early childhood center right now. And I think about the story where Jesus says, let the children come to me and do not deter them, and how that's a lot bigger than just telling the disciples they can come around him. And so my values are based in that Bible, but so is the way that I treat people, that I see the world, and then that I try to communicate my values to other people, because they deserve to know more than just the what I'm doing, but the why I'm doing it. And I found that when I explain my why in my real terms of faith, it can create some grace and space. People can disagree with me on the veto I issued or the bill that I signed, but they can understand where I'm coming from. And I think because of that, faith as a common language can be what helps heal this nation, helps bring people back from these polar opposites, can hopefully help us have our McCarthyism moment where some people take a breath out and say, whoa, we went too far. We've got to start treating other Americans and other citizens of planet Earth a whole lot better.
You know, I appreciate that because, you know, there's a segment of the population who think GOP means God's only party, or Christian means conservative, conservative means Christian. So I appreciate you being unapologetic and reminding us that we too can subscribe to the Christian experience and actually live it, not just talk about it. You know, in my introduction, I talked about you being the 50th Attorney General to serve the Commonwealth and the 63rd Governor to serve the Commonwealth. Can you talk about your service to the to Kentucky at this point, both the challenges and opportunities you've seen from a statewide perspective?
Well, it's been a true honor. I got into this because I saw that government could still do good and could still be a force for good in people's lives. And I ran for Attorney General because I was a lawyer, and I just saw it as an ability to help people. When I became Attorney General, we went after child predators, arresting more than any other AG ever had. We went after scammers who were going after our seniors and stealing their life savings. We started the first group to pursue human traffickers, to make sure that all of our citizens were safe. And I sued more opioid companies than any other AG in the nation because they flooded our communities with so many addictive pills that took so many lives from people that we love and cared about. Then I ran for governor because we had a governor that is very much like our current president, that didn't bring people together, that divided them, that saw the world in only red or blue, that attacked our public school teachers, that tried to strip the pensions of every public employee, that tried to take money out of education. All this sounds familiar because we're seeing it as a country right now, and it was happening in Kentucky first. And so I ran against him in a state that is a Trump plus 30 state and won. And then getting the opportunity to do this job, both through the tough parts and the great parts. I mean, I became governor 3 months before COVID. Governing through a pandemic is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. We've had 15 federally declared natural disasters hit Kentucky. Worst tornado ever, worst flooding ever. But by the way, you want to see God, you see how people treat each other right after one of these natural disasters. Hundreds of times I've seen someone standing in front of what used to be their home or used to be their business, and they always ask the same question. They say, where do I start? And there are 12 Kentuckians around them that say, why don't you start with us? In those moments where all of the things that are pushed upon us are stripped away, people are so good, and they're so good to each other, and they're not worried about the differences or the politics. They're just willing to give the shirt off their back to help someone who has just been devastated. And leading through those have been tough, but they've been important, and doing it in a way that unites us. You know, after a mass shooting that took the lives of one of my closest friends, I had that moment, like President Trump has had a couple times, where you either use it to bring people together to try to push for a better world, or you use it to attack your enemies and further divide you. And despite it being very personal, I wanted to make sure that my friend's legacy was one of unity and of progress. But then on the other side, I've gotten to govern through the best economic times my state has seen in a long time. The most private sector investment, the most new jobs. Last year, our average new wage in Kentucky was almost $30 an hour. Drug overdose deaths have gone down 4 straight years. Thank God. We've been waiting for this moment for a long time. We're seeing our tourism records break 3 straight years, our exports records break. And what I see is our families doing better. And that's what's most important to me, bringing jobs to communities that haven't had enough of them, bringing healthcare access to those same communities. And I will say it is much harder under the Trump administration, which is cutting some of the programs that were creating this progress. But I'm a governor. I don't get to give excuses. And so I've got to push through those headwinds to do the very best for the people of Kentucky. And, you know, even with all the tariffs, even with the national economy really starting to sour, we've had the best first quarter ever in terms of new investment in my state. And what I love is those jobs are going everywhere. We're making sure that everybody's included.
You know, that's a good alley-oop to my next question, actually. How has it been for you governing in the Commonwealth while having to deal with the Trump administration? We've seen the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, largest cut to SNAP benefits, Medicare. We've seen the rollback of progress that has put America on the track towards perfection, which includes progress, but we've seen a lot of that roll back within a year and a half. How have you dealt with the Trump administration from a perspective of fighting back, pushing back, but also working with them to get things done?
Well, it's a challenge because the Trump economy is a failure, and the Trump foreign policy has made all of us less safe. We've taken a country that used to be leader of the free world and a beacon from hope and turned it into the bully on the playground to even many of our allies. I look at Donald Trump's policies, and it starts with tariffs. 90% paid by the American people. So everything is more expensive because of that board that he held up. Then I think about his war with Iran and what it's done to gas and diesel, and how difficult that is for folks. And then the big ugly bill, which threatens to close 35 rural hospitals in Kentucky, fire 20,000 healthcare workers, and kick 100,000 people off their coverage. I mean, that's going to devastate rural communities because that rural hospital is the largest payroll. So if it closes, so does local coffee shop, bank, insurance company, restaurant, you name it. I mean, Donald Trump is hurting not just the very people that voted for him, but all Americans in a way more profound than we thought a president could even have on the economy. So my job has been to help our people during these tough times. I suspended part of our gas tax, which has gas and diesel lower in Kentucky than it would have been. And then trying to find as many ways to help people get by. But on the flip side, my job is to bring in better jobs, better paying jobs, not to incentivize cut rate jobs, but to make sure that all of our people have an opportunity to earn enough. But let me say, I'm fighting back against this administration. Yes, I'm not a guy who puts memes out. I'm not a guy who uses certain language, but I'm the only person in a state that voted for Trump by 30 points to have sued him 20 times. And I've done that not because I'm a Democratic governor and he's a Republican president. It's because his policies hurt the people of my state. And that's where we've got to get back to, representing our families, doing our very best for people and earning their trust in that way.
Governor, the biggest measure, if you will, on the economy is not micro, it's not macro, it's feelonomics. That's economics. Feel. So how I describe it anyway. And we know that Maganomics has been a failure, causing us to have the worst affordability crisis perhaps in my 41-year-old lifetime. What do you say to people who forget about trying to make ends meet? They're putting two ends together, hoping they meet. What do you say to those people who cannot afford the basic necessities needed to live?
Oh, that we have got to do better and we have got to do more. Listen, I think the Democratic Party, but I'll take every party, need to get back to being the parties of the American dream, which hasn't always been available for all Americans, but has always been what we've been marching towards. That idea that if you work hard and play by the rules, you can get ahead. You think about what it's going to take to make that American dream sustainable as we move forward. It starts with a good job, where if you work hard, you can not only pay your bills at the end of the month, you can take your kids on that same vacation that your parents took you on. The American dream starts with a job, but it lives in a home. The current average age for first-time home ownership in America is 40. We cannot succeed if that remains. We've got to make huge investments in affordable housing. We've got to make sure that people can still see their dream in front of them and raise their family in that same type of home that makes memories. It's a long dream, not a short one, which means we've got to have accessible, affordable health care. We can't have people that are skipping medications, that are not taking all of their insulin because they simply can't afford the medications that help them survive. It's got to be in communities where people feel good, they feel safe. And if they don't feel safe, we don't cite statistics to them. We do more to help folks feel safe. And finally, it's a dream where your kids can be better off than you were, which means that we have got to not defund, but significantly reinvest in public education. The vast majority of all American kids will always be going to a public school. And the solution is not defunding or sending money in other places. It's finally investing in a way that gives every child a real shot in this country.
The most loyal and dedicated voting bloc in the history of this country are voters who look like me. Obviously, there's a sense of disconnectivity. There's a sense of distrust. There's a sense of we don't matter. You want our output, but you don't want our input. What do you say to the Democratic Party of how we should manage dealing with Black voters? And what do you say to Black voters who feel politically exhausted because our lives have not changed, even though we've given our most sacred thing we have in our trust in elected officials at the ballot box, election after election?
I think Democrats shouldn't be just chasing votes. We should be creating a level of inclusion. I mean, if you look at the cabinet that I put together or my AG's office, in my cabinet, my top two appointed officials, both African-American Kentuckians, first time that has ever happened. Now, they're simply the very best, which is why we needed their help, but making sure that our very first personnel cabinet secretary, Jarena Weathers, African-American woman, now the lead DA in Louisville, our largest city, made sure that we had the right hiring policies. I recognize that I won't always see each method of exclusion that is out there, but having the right people around means we can have the right policies in place. We need to make sure that our governments and the way that we form our teams look like the country that we live in. And then we just got to deliver results. And I mean, real results. And that in Kentucky has been bringing over 1,000 jobs to West Louisville. It's been building that first hospital there in 150 years. It was in the pandemic when Black Kentuckians were dying at 3 to 5 times the rate of white Kentuckians. We launched a full-on sign people up for healthcare, specifically in our largest African-American neighborhoods. And by the end of the pandemic, partnering with our churches, partnering with our urban leagues, we were able to correct in real time that injustice. And so for me, it's making sure I'm not only surrounded by voices, but those voices feel included at the table, can tell me when they think that I have it wrong, have their own voice. And when you are in a position like I am, empowering folks with the appointments you make. I've gotten to appoint the first 3 Black women that have ever served as Commonwealth attorneys. Those are our district attorneys across Kentucky, and Lexington and Louisville, our 2 largest cities, but also in far Western Kentucky. It's the judicial appointments that you get to make. It's the boards that you put people on. One of my great friends is Valerie Washington. She is the pastor of AME Zion in Louisville. We just had their 149th or 159th convocation that I was able to help kick off. It's making sure that she is in those positions of leadership.
You know, Governor, when America has a cough, Black America has the flu. When America's experiencing smoke, Black America's on fire. Obviously, the issues that are facing our country are 3 to 4 times worse when it comes to our community. What would you say are the top 3 issues facing our country, and laser in a bit facing the African American community from your perspective?
Well, if it's about being intentional, right? It's about listening to the not just the concerns, but the reality that's out there. The unemployment level that's skyrocketing, especially among Black women, and then being targeted with that response. As governor, it's you have a new business that wants to locate in Kentucky. Where are you pitching it? Are you pitching it in our African American communities? Are you making sure that we are always putting that option out there in front of those employers? We had one company that we were able for the first time ever to design an incentive to hire people from the neighborhoods surrounding that company, meaning it wasn't just a single investment, it was hiring. I think as we look forward in the future, if we look to what I hope is the next Democratic presidency, we've got to look at an executive order that returns a lot of that Voting Rights Act, any and everything that we can get back in, and protects people's access to the ballots and ensures we have diverse voices in Congress and throughout the country. It's got to be a significant investment in housing, and we need to make sure that goes in our communities that haven't seen enough investments in housing. It's about knowing that, yes, there are challenges all throughout the economy, but we've got to be targeted in the investments and the dollars that we put in to the communities that have been ignored for far too long. And with that right investment, I think can truly thrive.
You know, Governor, you mentioned the next Democratic president or next president being Democrat. From my vantage point, you're doing some high-level political flirtation with the potential of offering yourself to serve. What's next for Governor Andy Beshear after he leaves the governorship next year? And are you thinking about offering yourself to serve our nation in a different way?
Well, I will tell you, in 2023, I win re-election by 5 points in a state that should be impossible for a Democrat. I walk off the stage, I look at my wife, Brittany, and I say, whoo, I will never have to run for anything ever again. and I meant it when I said it, because these shouldn't be careers. And being governor is enough. You get to work really hard for the people that you love, for the place that you're from. And I've gotten to see such incredible progress since I've been governor. We've been top 5 in economic development per capita every year I've been in office. I can see people having more opportunity now. And by the way, the temperature's turned down in Kentucky. You don't see neighbors yelling at neighbors, because we are all doing better. And we recognize that lifts everyone up and leaves no one out. But I refuse to leave a broken country to my kids or to anybody else's. And I only see our challenges getting greater. The shameful decision by the Supreme Court on the Voting Rights Act is just the latest hit that the American people have taken that is pulling us backwards. And so I haven't made any decisions yet. I don't know exactly what my future looks like, but I'm trying to speak reason into chaos right now to be a voice that can hopefully bring not just the Democratic Party together, but others as well, that says, don't you want a more stable and just United States of America? Aren't you tired of getting hit by difficult news moment after moment after moment all day long, of having your president and your vice president talk down to every single American, to say that they don't care about our financial well-being, of taking us into a war that they didn't talk to Congress or even the American people about beforehand? So what I want to make sure is that we have leadership in the future that I do believe should be a Democratic governor, because we've got the receipts. We can show the American people what we have and what we have not done. I just want to make sure that we are on track to get that type of leadership. And let me tell you, if it needs to be me, my wife and I will have a strong conversation about that. But if it's not, I will be behind whoever I believe can heal this country and get us back going in the right direction.
Governor, me and the AME Church, we can keep a secret. Are you at least thinking about it?
Well, I'm getting asked about it a lot.
Okay.
It's one where, of course, you're thinking about it when it's out there. But 2026 is so important. Flipping the U.S. House is so important, and I'm head of the Democratic Governors Association, and so my work right now can change the map for 28. Because if you think about every governor's mansion we flip in 26 is in play in 28, I'll give you a secret. I think we're going to win Iowa. We've got a real chance to win Ohio. And all around the country, we are seeing races that are coming into play, even in the South, and we'll see what's possible. Alabama's primary Democratic turnout doubled from 4 years ago. Doubled. Keisha Lance Bottom ran away with a primary, dominating in places that nobody expected, making her an incredibly strong candidate to flip Georgia. And you know what? Southern Democrats, we scrapped our way back to a seat at the table after being overlooked for a long time. We have 3 Democratic governors and myself, Josh Stein, and Abigail Spanberger. Georgia gave us 2 Southern U.S. senators, and North Carolina is going to give us another one in Roy Cooper. So a lot of work to be done. And I can't look ahead of November, because I put the country first, and the country's on the line in 26 before we get to 28.
Governor, my last question. I said this in Political a few years ago. The road to heaven in the White House runs through South Carolina. You are going to South Carolina, or have been to South Carolina.
I'm in South Carolina right now.
Not, but you on a Friday night, you're going to be at the state party dinner, but at the Jim Clyburn world famous fish fry. What has Jim Clyburn meant to you and to our country?
It is a huge honor to get invited by Jim Clyburn to be one of his featured guests at this event. I mean, this man is a titan, a civil rights leader, such an amazing voice, not just in Congress, but in many ways as part of the soul of the nation. And for that person to say he wants you to stand next to him, he wants you to help in the fight he's been fighting for longer than you've been alive, that he believes you can be an important part in pushing this country back in the right direction. First, that's very humbling, but I'm really honored. I think about that invitation to Selma, which is where I first got to know Representative Clyburn, and then this one here today. And it means a lot to me. Hopefully it's an affirmation that I'm doing the right things. I'm listening to the right leaders. But anytime Jim Clyburn says he wants you to do something, you say, yes, sir.
And lastly, Governor, what do you say to the people listening to this program who are feeling exhausted, feeling left out, feeling like nothing has changed, but yet everything has changed? What's your closing message to the people of the AME Church?
Well, mine is have faith. There is a better world ahead. God always comes through for us, even in the darkest of times. I think about many of the times described in the Bible, and there seem to be no opportunity, no light, but there is here. We are seeing people wake up all over the country. We're seeing record numbers in voting, including early voting here in South Carolina. People are saying you will not take our voice away from us. And I believe there is a large part of this country that wants to move in the right direction, that recognizes that people are most concerned with their job, their next doctor's appointment, the roads and bridges they drive, the school they drop their kids off at, and whether they feel safe in their community and whether they're included in their community. I believe that the Democratic Party can be that party that creates a better life for everyone and that recognizes that life for many have been challenging long before this current administration, but believe in the United States of America where everyone should have that opportunity. The American dream should be available to every single person out there, and then works with our churches, works with our communities to actually get real progress. We've seen it in Kentucky. We can do it nationally too.
And Beshear, the 50th Attorney General of the Commonwealth, 63rd Governor, and one of my favorite titles, an SOG. That's not SOB, but SOG, son of a governor. And Governor Beshear, welcome to South Carolina. I look forward to dialoguing with you again in person, and thank you for taking time to join us on the Christian Recorder. To all of you, I look forward to being back with you soon with other special guests.